Hi, welcome back to Homestead to Health. My name is Caitlin, and today is going to be our second weekly garden tour. Right now I'm doing my evening chores, kind of just wrapping my day up. But before I went on to show you like how things are doing around here, I thought I would tell you this super wild story about what happened yesterday. First of all, a little backstory. So a couple of months ago, we got our pigs, and whenever we very first brought them home, because we had purchased two, one of them immediately ran away. I mean, immediately ran away. And we thought maybe, you know, because we had heard gunshots while we were chasing her and stuff, and she was black and white, and we're like, surely somebody thought she was a feral pig. And then at one point we even saw a pig on the side of the road that kind of looked a little similar, and so we maybe thought, you know, she had got hit by a car or something. I'm too into the story. So anyways, here I was thinking I was plumb out of luck and that I had lost $80 of an investment with this pig, and we had to go back and buy a second pig. So weeks go by, and here I am thinking that pig is long gone or dead. And one day I just so happened to be in my garden or headed to the garden or something, and I looked over at the cow pasture next door, and what do I see but that freaking pig. And not just that pig, I mean, I know for a fact it was that pig because I had vlogged us going to go pick her up, and so I remember, and I have like something to look back on to see what she looked like, and that was definitely her. And so I go out inside to get my long lens camera to take pictures to show my husband proof of her not only being alive, but that she has joined like a renegade pig gang of other domestic pigs who I've guessed just have ran off. And I know this sounds so absurd and so crazy, but I know the difference between a wild hog and a domestic pig, and these were all very much all domestic pigs. So this brings us to yesterday, and I had a friend text me, and she said, hey, are you going to be home today? I've got this basket I want to return to you. And I said, yeah, I'm home. So she's over, and we're talking in my living room, and just because she so happens to be there, she so happens to be looking out the right window, she says, hey, your pigs are out. And I freak out, and I'm like, what? And I get up and I look, and it's not my two pigs, it's this gang of like 5 or 6. Y'all, I started screaming at everybody. I said, stay in here, stay in here. And I went to the bedroom, and I grabbed our gun from the top of the closet, and I rushed out the back door. Guys, let me tell you, these pigs weren't afraid of anything. They weren't afraid of my dog George running up to them. They weren't afraid of me walking up to them. In fact, one started walking up to me expecting food because, like I said, these are domestic pigs that have all ran away and I guess joined a street gang. So then I'm approaching this pig, right? I got my gun in hand. This pig's seeing me. They're coming towards me, and they were trying, and they were lifting up with their nose my fancy flock, their chicken tractor that I have over there. They were trying to get in there to eat my chicks, and I've seen it happen. You know, every now and then we'll have a dead bird and we have to throw it to the pigs, and the pigs will, I mean, just fight over it. It's kind of intense to watch. Pigs are the perfect omnivores because they can eat not only the grossest part of the meat in the body and stuff, but they can also eat grass, and so they have no qualms over eating trapped chickens. And I saw that, my heart dropped. Any reservations I had completely gone. I start firing, and I hit one pig, and it ran off to die somewhere else. And then I hit a different pig, and I hit it in about 2 spots before I had to, you know, put it out of its misery. I'm really glad because now I know for a fact, I mean, those pigs, 6 of them just walked up in my yard like nothing, and they will attack. I think somebody this past January, is an elderly woman, she was actually attacked and did not survive being attacked by some wild pigs, or I think it was a hog, but they're really dangerous. And so these pigs had no qualms coming up here. They weren't afraid of me, they weren't afraid of my dog, they were trying to eat my chicks. And sometimes things like this are happening where I'm doing something and my kids are just very barely out of sight, and I would hate for anything to happen to my pets, to my animals, but most importantly to my children. And so I'm really glad that I got to take my shot, so to speak, well, and literally, because now I really hope that gang never comes to bother me. So yeah, I had a run-in with my local pig gang, and I won. Cowboys up. this is my potato bed, and whereas these sweetheart kind of vines, these are my sweet potatoes, I had way more potatoes in the potato bed, just normal potatoes, but as you can see with these leaves curling in and stuff, I've just not been watering them consistently, and so these are very much suffering. I need to remember to water these more often. But the sweet potato part of the bed is really thriving. Look how tall those black oil sunflower seeds are that the chickens planted. I think that they're almost ready to, yep, there's a blossom in there. They're about ready to open up some heads. Look at how full all of this is. Now this is my squash and my melon bed. Things like cantaloupe are planted over here. You can probably see the yellow dots on it. That's a moon and stars melon. And I'm pretty sure that this is an orangelo melon. And then interplanted are some squash and gourds. Now this squash plant right here, that's the one that Cheyenne picked her fruit off of. And during the day, it looks like it probably is on its way out, like some bug damage got to it or something. But like in the evenings, it looks good again. So I don't know, maybe it had one and it's gonna thrive moving forward, applying some pest control. Actually, a couple of my squash have had some pretty significant bug damage. Even my buttercup squash over there, which I was just singing its praises last week, all of these things are still experiencing some bug damage. Now, I will say this, I have not been religious about putting on pest control or anything like that. I've kind of really been living by what happens, happens. I wish I could sit here and I wish I could tell you that I was the kind of person that I was going to come and make better changes and that I would be more consistent with it or what have you. But the truth of the matter is, I'm a mom with 2 small kids. I've got a lot going on. Sometimes some things just kind of fall by the wayside. There's just so much calling my name, and sometimes I just don't get to it. And so, but that's just kind of like the truth and the fact of how it is, especially being here with 2 small kids and so much going on, is that you really have to delegate your time and you have to set your priorities on what's the most important, and could some things kind of take the hit. And unfortunately, my squash have been the ones taking the hit. However, I have a gourd planted over here. I'm pretty sure it's a gourd. Pretty confident it's a gourd actually. But I have a gourd over here really taking off. It is climbing on the trellis, really just exploding with life. And last week on the video, it was no taller than any of the leaves, you know, on the lower end of things. But let me just turn you around. I want to show you. Look at that. Oh my goodness. That is just going and going. And like I said, last week it was no taller than maybe that. That other squash that was here that I said I wanted to see what happened, maybe nature could surprise me, it died. Not so surprising. But I am going to try to come out this week, do some more Garrett juice, diatomaceous earth. I mean, I'm going to give it a good shot, but I'm just not going to punish myself if this doesn't work out for now. But the great thing about squash is that you can actually replant in the fall, and I've heard that you experience way less squash bugs and you just have better luck overall. Behind me, this bed's really not doing much of anything. I do have a couple of cabbages left over from earlier, and honestly, I was trying to see how long that they would go because some of them look like they're trying to give me some heads to them. But I might just come out here and take some of the leaves and just end up sauteing some cabbage leaves. I do have some random melons that my little girl planted and a little bunch of celery. And this is the bed that I came through the other day and planted lima beans, so I'm excited for that as well. Now at the end of that bed I have my yellow cucumbers, which still aren't producing, but they are starting to climb and get a little fuller. Lots of flowers, and right next door are my radishes. Now I know before, whenever I planted these, I said that I didn't mind if something like this happened, which this is them going to seed. This is their flower, or radish flower, which I did not know that radish flowers were this beautiful. But that's okay. I'm going to let that happen. I might come through here every now and then and pull some and feed them to my rabbits, who I'm sure will enjoy it. So not all is lost with the radish world. Over here, my pickling cucumbers, you can see that they're also starting to bush out and start to climb over here. You can see them. Hey guy, that's him. Still no fruit, but I'm looking forward to them. So this is my other raised bed, and my marigolds are looking great. This is some of my amaranth, and my amaranth is starting to grow up. Raised beds for me are kind of a challenge just because you have to water them way more often. They probably need a daily watering schedule, whereas like my in-bed garden, I only have to water it every other day. So I might have to switch to watering daily for over here just to make sure everything has a great start. Look at my buckwheat. This is some of my buckwheat, and you can see it's already setting flowers, which is exactly what I need it to do, unlike the radishes. I need this to set flowers so that it can produce buckwheat for me. And isn't that just so cool? Everything is growing, I mean, like, at an alarming rate. Because like I said, these don't hold water near as much as like an in-ground bed. And for as much as they're growing, I mean, these would probably be uncontrollable if I planted them in the ground. Whew, it's hot. But other than my raised beds and the squash bed, nothing too amazing is happening over here with my shade box out of commission. My orange tree is trying to hold on to life, and my fig is just so small, nothing really is happening. However, my little sneaky squashes and melons that I planted off in the corner over here, I've paid them absolutely no attention, and they're starting to do really well. This is just another mystery bed to me. I have no idea who's who until they start producing. But they're doing pretty well by my standards. This will forever be one of my favorite things, just seeing at what height these pole beans will stop. I mean, it's way up in there. Speaking of, look at that baby. This year I set out to pay way more attention to growing beans. I not only wanted to have a lot of fresh green beans, I wanted to also have a lot of beans to dry and things like that. And oh boy, did my garden deliver. I mean, my beans are overwhelming me right now, actually. I just sent like a huge pan of them to a friend's house. But there's way more in there, and I'm finally at that part of the season where I'm gonna have to designate at least one day a week to where I'm in the kitchen canning, preserving, just everything that comes with being blessed with having harvest. This year already I had 4 huge baskets of plums. Gave one away and I'm still processing them. And that's after, I mean, 15 jars of plum preserves or something like that. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to start making some time on my schedule for just kitchen work. But let's go into the garden, let's see what's happening. This pumpkin's off to a slow start, but it is finally starting. Over there, if you can see, here's some of my walking fennel, and it's going to be amazing. My lemon cukes are really starting to come out. Again, even on those cucumbers, still no produce, but they are getting much bigger. All of my herbs, for the most part, they're all doing fairly well. My chrysanthemums are about to flower, and that is super cool to me. My dill has set flower, and it's a beautiful bouquet, and I put like a little bitty sample of fresh dill on my tongue, and it was amazing. It was just simply amazing. Now this is a basil bolting, and every time I just pick it off to keep it from doing that, so that this plant thinks like, oh, I guess my life cycle isn't over, and instead of continuing to grow those flowers and to put all of its energy in that, it'll grow bigger and bushier. See? Different basil, same thing. Different basil, same thing. My 3-year-old and I actually came out here the other day. We were having some kind of ravioli or pasta dish or something like that, and we were able to harvest our own basil, and we picked so many different kinds that y'all know I have like 10 different types of basil in here, and we did like a little Mod Podge collection of them, and that was without a doubt the most delicious ravioli I've had to memory. And so I don't know, maybe I'm a little biased because it's my hard-earned, hard-worked for basil, but it was really good. And so anytime I come and I check out all my herbs, I'm just going, what would you taste good with? Lemon balm, my fennel's over there, Lemongrass is, I mean, looking amazing. There are my chrysanthemums with their little flower heads on them, if you can see. And then my transplanted lavender is doing well. It seems to be reaching for the sun. This is tree lettuce. Now I do have to go through and thin that right after I'm done doing everything else. And here's my Chinese kale, which kind of looks a little bit like broccoli, huh? But it's actually doing really well despite how warm it is. Just like its neighbor Tatsoi, who again I just have to go through and thin. I've thinned that out now several times. Right there in the middle has a little bit more space, and you can see how good they look. Today I came through, got the sunburn of my life, but I came through and I finished trellising most of my tomatoes. I think I have like 4 or 5 I haven't done yet, but they're all trellised up with that string, and they should be able to climb and train well. Now my plants are all loaded with tomatoes. They look awesome, but I haven't had my fresh tomato yet. Don't worry, as soon as one of these babies get ripe, y'all will be the first to know. Uh-oh, hidden tomato. I didn't see this guy. I thought he was, oh guys. So these are a part of my tomatoes, but I guess I missed them because I thought they were a part of my marigolds. So tomorrow I'm gonna have to come back through here and prune them and tie them up. Look at this funny bean. It looks pregnant. Most of my beans actually are really full yet again. I did a video where I said that I thought that the dragon tongues were way smaller than the borlotos. I spoke way too soon. So this is a dragon tongue, and it is humongous. I'm gonna have to come out here early tomorrow morning and harvest these. So that's an egg. So this is a buttercup squash, which is doing pretty well. Like I said earlier, though, they are suffering some damage. If you can see the vine, the wilting, things like that. So I'm gonna really have to come spend some time over here. This squash was one of my first squashes that I had, and it has stopped growing and turning around. Now, where I'm saying it might be pest problems, it could also very much be water problems. Maybe I'm just not watering them as best as I could. So maybe tonight, after they get their big drink of water, these over here and this area over here, anytime you see tomatoes with their leaves curled in, it could be because they're getting too much sun and not enough water, or it could just be because, or it could just be that they're not getting enough water, there's some disease or something like that. Because all of these issues are happening pretty central to right here, I'm thinking it's a water issue. And of course, having a water issue is extremely easy for me to fix because I'm about to water my garden. But I would just get this little area right here, the damaged tomatoes, the hurting squash. I would just let the water go a little longer here than I normally have been. And it very well could be a water situation since they're over here in this little corner. This is probably the last place that I move the sprinkler in the evening, and so maybe I'm a little impatient and ready to go inside. So it very well could be a water issue. So I'm going to pay close attention to that. But guys, I've got brand new fruit. On this trellis here are chrysanthemum melons, and I went to go FaceTime my husband and show him something, and I saw, where is it? And I saw this, and I was like, oh my goodness, look, I did it. But then after pulling it up, I saw this one, and I was like, oh my goodness, I did it. And then in seeing that one, I saw that one back there. Now that is a big one. There she is, boys, my absolute favorite. Just like the tree, these beans are growing up my zinnias. Isn't that so funny? Well, my camera died. I had to go charge my battery for a little bit. But while that was happening, I set up both sprinklers. I have 2 sprinklers going, so hopefully, even though I'm battling with the sun going down, again, story of my life, I have both sprinklers going, so hopefully that'll make that job a little easier. But that's okay, because I honestly only have like a couple of things that I really want to show you. I don't want to get wet. So a question that I get sometimes is about pruning tomatoes. What is a sucker and how do you prune it? Well, a sucker is this right here. This little piece of plant that is growing in the armpit of like the stalk and a leaf bunch right here. See how these are all leaves and they end with the leaf on the point? This one, the sucker usually ends with a Y because they want the stalk to come out, because another sucker will come up between that armpit, and that's how they grow. That's how an entire tomato plant grows, is it's essentially one giant sucker. Tomatoes have these little bristles on the side of them, and those are all potential roots. It's not just fuzzy so you can hug them. But yes, you're going to want to snap these suckers off. And the reason for that is because these are essentially potential plants. And your tomato plant will put a lot of effort into making sure that this little guy grows. Now, I did leave one right next door to show you what I was talking about. So here's a sucker that's growing off the bottom. And doesn't that just look like an entire tomato plant? Because it essentially is. I could cut this, set it in a jar of water, let the stem set off root shoots, and this would be its own tomato plant, and I could just put it in the dirt. But that's probably not healthy for this plant. You see how this one is slightly shorter than that one? This one gets regularly pruned, where this one has been able to grow this big side sucker. So it has converted a lot of its energy into that. So I'm going to cut this little twin off, and that'll give this plant way more energy to invest in its own growth, other than trying to spawn off. But a different way that I prune as well is right up until the first set of fruit, I usually come through and take off not only suckers, but any leaf at all. And that's only until it gets to the first fruit. After that, I tend to leave the leaves alone unless I feel like they are blocking the sun from the fruit. If they block the sun from the fruit won't mature as well, as easily, and they won't develop all of those yummy sugars that make tomatoes sweet. So prune off the suckers anytime you see them, unless you want to propagate a tomato. So in my case, I had a bunch of tomatoes die, and so I would let these suckers go so that I could propagate them, put them down, and then essentially have more tomato plants without all of the early bird work. This is my second year with tomatoes, and so I'm pretty well versed in pruning tomatoes. Like I said, up until they get their first fruit, I kind of stay on them for pruning. You never want to take off, and this is me, mathematically what makes sense. I never take off anything that doesn't leave for leaves or for branch leaves, so to speak. So here is still a relatively small one. I didn't even trellis it. And I left this one alone. As you can see, its first fruit is starting right here. So if I were to prune this one, this is about the size I start pruning, is I would come through and I would just take off these little leaves. Hopefully use shears or scissors or something so that you don't potentially damage your plant. But you can see I've left 1, 2, 3, I'm going to count this as 4 leaves. Now this is enough to photosynthesize, to continue growing, and to continue thriving. And this is also a good time to check the little armpits for suckers. And this one did have a sucker, but it's really tiny. But nonetheless, I got it. So this is going to be a healthy, ready to go plant in no time. Also under the water are, let me zoom in, some bushes. These are my huckleberries, my ground cherries, things like that. They are really starting to take off. And then I have a bee balm there at the end. Look at that. Gosh, you could powder your face with that. Isn't that beautiful? Right here I have something that I didn't weed. Now this is wild purslane. It just grows here like nothing. In fact, we consider this a weed. But I left this here on purpose to show people because like it's about to flower right now. But people grow purslane on purpose, and that never occurred to me because I spend so much time trying to get rid of it. But this is purslane. It's native to Mexico, native to Texas, and I mean, it's just going crazy. And you can eat this raw. I don't know about cooked, but I know raw you can eat it. And it's got a kind of like a gelatinous taste to it. How's it going, Humphrey? Things looking all right? So this right here is an eggplant, and it has a flower going off. Now this one for some reason is much bigger than its neighbors. Oops, rain! But it is doing really well, and I'm so happy to see a flower. I've actually never grown my own eggplant. Just amazing borage that your garden there, Humphrey. My peppers. Now peppers are another thing that you can prune, which I'll be showing you next week. But you can also prune zucchini and things like that. But most of my peppers actually have some sort of fruit on them now. At least one in every variety probably has a fruit. My hill country okra is starting to perk up. That's that bit right there that has a little red in it between it. I have no memory as to what these are, but aren't they just absolutely gorgeous? I think they're called no, maybe not. I don't want to say anything and it be wrong. I don't remember what these are. Now, I was arguably most excited about these peppers this year. These are jigsaw peppers, and they're supposed to get really big, really bushy, and their leaves are variegated like this. They're a little different colored, and they're purple, and they're starting to set fruit, so I'm excited about that. Now, I'm a pepper lover. I like all things spicy, and even if it's not spicy, I just like peppers. I like to eat them raw. Tonight I had them cooked in with my dinner. I love peppers. And so I need to go through, I need to count how many I have. Ooh, water on my back. But I have lots of tomatoes and lots of peppers. But guys, I'm already in the works of like planning my fall garden, which might include like second rounds of things, like I said earlier, like a second round of squash, maybe a second round of some tomatoes, maybe some peppers. But either way, I'm really excited to see what comes out of my summer garden. I gotta stay present, I gotta stay in the moment. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Thank you for walking around and seeing what's growing, what's new, what's bushier. I'll see y'all later.